Welcome to Story Time at Congregation Shir Shalom. I'm Rabbi Alex, and this is Cantor Frank, and we're delighted that you're here with us. We're going to sing a little song today and tell a story, and I hope that you'll join along. So I'm going to start off with Cantor Frank, who has a wonderful song planned.
It's called Am Yisrael Chai, and the word Chai means life. And we're so excited about how the Jewish people, they live on and on. We live back in history, we live in the present, and we're going to live on Leolam Fo'ed, forever and ever. So we say, Am Yisrael Chai. And we put our hand up and we say, Chai. Can you say that? Can you say that sound, Rabbi?
I can try. Let's say Chai.
Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. So, Rabbi's going to help me with the hand motion because I'm going to be playing the ukulele a little bit, and he's going to be singing along too. Rabbi, can you take that?
Why don't you start us off?
Oh, okay, I'll start us off. Here we go. Am Yisrael Chai, 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 Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai, Am Yisrael 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 Chai.
Oh my gosh, you gave me a workout there. That was great. I love that. So, I think it's ready for our story, and I brought a little something. This, which is hard to see, is actually a pyramid. If I can build this correctly, let's see. Oh, there, almost. Let's see. We'll put it right over here. I'll see if I can make it stand. Almost got it. There we go. Okay, so just like the Jews, we built the pyramid. This story that I'm about to tell you is about how Moses was able to see the pyramids for the very first time. And it really took some help from his sister and his family. So I'm going to tell you this story. We got to go all the way back to ancient Egypt, where Moses lived in Pharaoh's palace. Pharaoh's palace was immense. There was everything there, and he had all the food in the world, all the toys, and every night Pharaoh would take him up to the balcony of the palace, and he would look out at all of Egypt, and he would see the food, all the corn stalks and the wheat, and all the different crops that were there, and Pharaoh would point to them, and he would show Moses the great Nile River, which flows from the bottom of Africa all the way to Egypt. And he would also show him the great pyramids, the magnificent structures, and Moses would come away smiling and so happy to live in such a wonderful place as Egypt. Miriam, who was Moses' teacher, would watch him and wonder, how could he think it was such a wonderful place when our people were enslaved there? We were slaves and working hard. And Miriam would be very, very sad she went home to her family, to her mother Yocheved, her father Amram, and her brother Aaron, and she would tell them what was bothering her, that Moses was so happy he didn't know how much his own family was really suffering. And Yocheved, who was very wise, told her daughter Miriam, she said, you just have to be able to show him. You must show him. So Miriam thought long and hard about this and wondered what she should do. And then she came up with a plan. She decided the next day when she saw Moses that she would tell him that we are going to go on a little trip. And she went to Moses and she said, you know, you've seen the great fields of food. You've seen the Nile and you've seen the pyramids from a distance. I think it's time that you see them for yourself. So she packed a little lunch and she and Moses went out of the palace and they went on their way. They walked and walked until they came to the great fields of corn and of wheat. And they saw what Moses had seen from the balcony. And while they were there, they noticed that there was an older woman cutting down the stalks of corn. And as she was doing it, it was very hard. And she used her knife and she collected the stalks and she was struggling. And Moses asked Miriam, who is that woman? Why is she suffering so? And Miriam told him, she is a slave of Pharaoh. That is how your food comes to your table. So they kept walking for a while until they got to the mighty Nile River. It was more magnificent than even Moses could imagine, much more magnificent than he saw in the palace. And while he was there, he saw an older man who was collecting water and mud and putting them together to make bricks. And he was struggling so. And Moses asked Miriam, who is that man? And Miriam said, he is a slave. He is making bricks for the building of Pharaoh's buildings. And that is why he struggles. And they moved on until they made it to the great pyramids. There they sat in the shade of the pyramid. Egypt is very hot. And they ate their lunch. And while they were there, there was a great commotion. And they saw that there was a slave, another slave, a young man this time, who was working so hard to carry a heavy stone, almost as large as he was, to build one of the pyramids that was being built in the distance. And the taskmaster that was behind him was whipping him with a long rope. And he could see, Moses could see that that man was in terrible pain. He asked Miriam, is that man also a slave? And Miriam nodded. It got late, and Miriam said to Moses, you know, we don't have time to go back to the palace. Why don't you come to my home? And there we can eat and we can stay the night, and in the morning we'll return to the palace. And Moses agreed, and they went off to Miriam's home, where they sat down for a meal. And Moses met Miriam's mother, who was also his mother, Yocheved, and his father Amram, and his brother Aaron, and they all sat down for a meal. And as they were sitting there, Moses was studying the faces of his family. And he looked very closely at his mother, Yocheved's face. And he said, I know you. You were the one who was cutting down the corn. You were one of the slaves of Pharaoh. And Yocheved nodded. Then he looked at his father's face. And he could see the lines on Amram's face. He could see the struggle. And he says, I know you as well. You were the one that was making bricks by the Nile. You were also a slave of Pharaoh. And he continued to now look at his brother Aaron. And he said to Aaron as he studied his face closely, "You are the one who the taskmaster was whipping, who was carrying that very heavy stone." And Aaron nodded. And he looked at all of them, and you could see that pain was filling Moses' eyes. He was realizing what was happening. And Yocheved said to him, "We are also your family. One day you will help us. One day you will help bring us out of this land of Egypt into freedom." And Moses returned the next morning with Miriam. And he went and looked outside at the glory of Egypt. Only this time he didn't have a smile on his face. He had tears. He knew that each of the buildings and all the food and all the bounty from the Nile was causing terrible pain and suffering to his very own family. And that is how he learned about what the pyramids really were. So I think we learned a little something today too, that we need to look past just the buildings or the surroundings that we have and to look deeper at how the world works and fight like Moses and like Miriam and Yocheved and Amram and Aaron, fight to make this world a better place. I know that Cantor and I do that every day, and I know that you will too. So are we ready? We should do it Am Yisrael Chai again.
Did you give your shoulder a little bit of rest?
Oh, let's see. I feel a little like a slave today.